Hello, everyone, and welcome to the award-winning RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast presented by WinBet. It is Friday, May 21st, 2021. Alex Barutha here with Shannon McEwen, and making his long-awaited, highly anticipated return is Ken K. Price.
All aboard!
Welcome. It's been a less eventful 2 weeks without you.
You guys didn't blow the horn without me. You didn't have someone else do an old man rant. There wasn't some other wackiness from you two. You didn't up the wackiness in my absence.
I did not commission a custom handmade woodworked train whistle to use for the intro of the podcast.
Yeah. I mean, usually anything that involves whack, woodwork, hand, I do in the private of my own home.
That's not true. We've seen the videos. The security cam.
We're gonna move on from that. I think we should talk some basketball. So yesterday, I guess speaking of, the Wizards spanked the Pacers 142 to 115. Wizards now have the 8th spot in the Eastern Conference. The game was pretty much over at halftime. Pacers still without LeVert, without Turner. Sabonis and Brogdon were questionable, but I don't think they were actually questionable. So they were down 14 and a half, and then Indiana gave up a 48-point third quarter, which was kind of a laydown. The RotoWire favorite, Daniel Gafford, with 15 points, 13 rebounds, 5 blocks.
Your guy.
Gafford is a really high energy guy, kind of in the mold of he's in the mold of a Tyson Chandler. Obviously, we shouldn't expect that from him, but he's that type of player.
He looks like he has room to actually add a little muscle in the offseason.
Yeah, he's a thin guy. I think he can fill out more. But Nate McMillan can. He's looking good.
Nate McMillan, you think the Pacers wouldn't? You think they regret firing Nate McMillan last year? He's looking pretty good right now. Atlanta's the 5th seed, and Indiana's deciding whether or not to keep Nate Bjorkgren after Bjorkgren feuded with players most of the season. Bjorkgren, I think, in a shameless effort to try to keep his job, came out with this quote: "There's a lot of challenges being a head coach in this league. I don't make excuses for things. I'm a young coach. I'm learning. I'm growing, and I've got to coach better. This is on me. I'm the head coach. Things should be pointed at me and rest on my shoulders." Blah, 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 blah. Guys, do the Pacers keep Bjorkgren or blame injuries for this poor season?
He gone. I mean, I have.
Did you hear him mic'd up last night? Wasn't it just shameless? I was like, you can see the players not listening to him. They're just like Sabonis. Okay. I remember Sabonis got his 3rd or 4th foul, and he runs over. It's like, I'm not taking you out, but you can't foul anymore. And Sabonis is like, I'm not an idiot. I can count to 4.
Yeah, I mean, given all the reports, everything that's surfaced in recent weeks, it would be a huge surprise in my eyes if he returned.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I think injuries were a part of it. Although, I mean, what team this season didn't deal with excessive injuries and excessive missed games? They still got 62 games out of Sabonis. They got 56 games out of Brogdon. I don't know.
Losing record for them. The play-in kind of sugarcoats how bad the season went for them.
I mean, right. It was a transitionary season for the Pacers anyways. I mean, you had Oladipo and his expiring contract, which they ended up moving him. They landed LeVert. Now you've kind of got your 3 or 4 core guys that you're building around moving forward. You got Turner and Sabonis, Brogdon, LeVert, obviously. Other good pieces like TJ Warren as well. My guess is they're just going to try to find a better fit for coaching wise because they have the personnel that they want.
They only got 4 games out of Warren, but if you're Kevin Pritchard, you almost go to that core. You're married to those guys. You almost say, you want to change? And I get the feeling they're going to say, yes, we do.
Yeah, because, I mean, you look at, the Wizards having a better record than them. The Wizards core is not better than the Pacers core. I mean, Sabonis and Brogdon is just as good, should be just as good as Westbrook and Beal.
No, it's not just as good or better than Westbrook and Beal. The depth that the Pacers have, yes.
Right, that's what I mean.
Right.
When you have Brogdon and Sabonis plus the depth, that there's no reason that should be better than the Wizards, who are starting, who can't get good minutes out of Bertans, who are starting Isaac Bonga for
Alex Len.
Yeah, the center rotation was.
I think we would have seen a much different game if LeVert were healthy, if Turner were healthy. If the Pacers in general had a healthier season. Yeah, I mean, if they had a healthier season, then there's a good chance that they would have, they wouldn't have been in the play-in situation. So
yeah. I really wonder how many of those Pacers even wanted to move on and face the Sixers for what would have been an ugly beatdown. I think some of them had to look in their eyes.
So from a fantasy perspective, though, I do think, we already talked about Gafford a little bit, but I think he's the guy that's really interesting from last night's playing game. 15-13, 5 block shots, a steal, only 22 minutes. Next year, I'm not sure. I'm assuming he's going to be ready at the beginning of the season, but Thomas Bryant's probably going to be coming back for the Wizards.
I don't think they're married to Bryant starting either when he comes back.
Probably not. But that if you have some shares of Gafford in a keeper league, I'm assuming it's very cheaply that you have him and can keep him. Are you high on him long term? Do you think he's going to be able to blossom into more? Show what we saw last night from him.
He's only 22, as you guys love to point out. So there's plenty of room for upside on a team horribly thin at the 5.
Yeah, I would assume they dump Len and Lopez whenever they can. At least you would think.
He's got 2 more years on his deal too, on his very cheap deal. 4 year, $6 million he signed summer of 2019. So, boy, you can spend elsewhere when you got a starting center at that. That's also productive.
Yeah, Thomas Bryant signed through the end next year. Next season's his last year. Robin Lopez coming off the books this year. I mean, Gafford's cheap next couple of years. It's just
part of the.
Do they want Lopez back? I can't imagine that was hard to watch. Those hook shots, effective but really hard to watch.
Yeah, Alex Lamb's a free agent after this season as well. So there is I do think there's going to be opportunity for Gafford. We saw what he could do in 22 minutes. So even if he's only in a backup role where he's playing 22 to 25 minutes, he could provide solid fantasy value next season.
Yeah, I think, for the Wizards, their finances are kind of out of control, which is part of the problem. Like, Gafford's cheap and Thomas Bryant's cheap, but Westbrook's $44 million, Beal's $34, Bertans is $16. There's really not even much you can do after that.
I can't stop. Every time the Bertans contract is mentioned, I just
$80 million for Bertans. It's kind of unbelievable.
Chop my kid's finger off.
He played 20 minutes and made 2 threes yesterday and was awful in the first playing game as well against Boston.
Don't forget the terrible defense.
Yeah, and he can't play defense. So it's what are we doing? Like, if you want to sign him $16 million for 2 years, 3 years, fine. 5 years? Anyway, do you guys have any quick thoughts on Washington versus Philadelphia round 1? Are you expecting maybe a 5-game series? I'm putting about a 0% chance on an upset here, but
5 games would be honestly best case scenario for Washington here.
I disagree. I actually think Beal and Westbrook can push the Sixers a little bit, possibly to 6 games. I do think Embiid's just going to feast on the Wizards.
Exactly.
That's obvious. I'm just not as high. I know the Sixers are number 1 seed in the East. I expect them to, pretty easily advance to the conference finals, given their path. But at the same time, I don't think they have enough to win the conference finals or win win an NBA championship. I don't think they're really even close to that.
I think they're going to spank Washington. For the Embiid reasons, and they'll play enough D on Beal and Westbrook. They don't need to guard all of them.
I just expect right. I just expect Beal and Westbrook to steal, 1 game each. So that's why I would put it at 6 games.
Yeah, I think so. Right now, the series line for 76ers Wizards is not up, but the biggest underdog that we have right now is the Celtics at plus 700 against the Nets, who are minus 1430 to win the series. I would expect kind of the Wizards odds to be between that and the odds for like the Mavericks, who are plus 300. So I think if the Wizards settle in at like plus 500, that seems about right. Not something I would bet. Again, like you guys alluded to, this might be a series where if you're betting, you either go on a game-to-game basis or you just keep hitting Joel Embiid overs on his points and rebounds until he doesn't hit,
Until it goes triple digit. What?
Yeah, 100 points and rebounds. That doesn't seem right. Okay, let's move on, Ken, to Warriors versus Grizzlies rematch.
Yes, tonight Memphis plays at Golden State for the 8th spot out west. Warriors are favored by 5 at home. Kelly Oubre is out still with a wrist injury. He hasn't played since April 27th. Valanciunas has had 6 straight big double-doubles, including a 23-point, 23-rebound effort in that win over the Spurs in the first play-in. Curry appeared in only one game versus Memphis, the game Alex alluded to that ended the season, where he went off for 46 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, and 9 three-pointers. It was only 5 days ago, and earned Curry the scoring title for the year. Gentlemen, who you got in tonight's play-in game, Warriors Grizzlies?
I got the Warriors, but it's not a lock. This isn't something I don't think I would bet on this. The Grizzlies played the Warriors well. Obviously, that game ended pretty close. It kind of came down to Dillon Brooks fouling out. He was playing very good defense on Steph Curry, or at least bothering him for most of the game.
They have a team that could slow Curry down. At least they have the possibility. They have defensive guards. Whether it happens or not, we'll see.
Yeah, and I think Valanciunas will have another big game. I'm not worried about that. I mean, they can't stop him. I mean, Valanciunas is unbelievable. The past 2 games, it's amazing to watch.
It's frustrating that they only run him out there for the 28 minutes per game during the regular season, which I believe was actually a career high for him. When you see what he does, the past couple games playing 35 or so minutes, and he's just like a walking 2020. It's absurd. He's always had this in him. His per 36 numbers have been insane for most of his career. I expect Valanciunas to have a monster night, but Golden State's going to win.
I'm curious to see what Jaren Jackson has. Not that many games in the regular season. They gave him a lot of off nights.
Yeah,
I feel like the Grizzlies are due some better Jackson.
I agree. He's been out there a decent amount of minutes. I forget exactly. It's somewhere in like the 20s. They're not running him. Even 30.
He's up. Yeah, he's 31. Up to 31.
31 last 2 games. Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like he's collected 4 steals and 3 blocks during that time. So you have him out there for defense. But in offense, it feels like you don't even notice he's out there unless he's just bombing his like awkward looking 3-pointer that looks like something you'd see at like a local pickup game. I cannot believe it goes in sometimes I kind of forgot that he was out there for a bit initially because he's been out for so long. And when he took his first 3, I was like, who is that? What just happened? And then I remember that his form is insane, but he's good. He's good.
Are you as high? Are you still high on Jaren Jackson? He's like a fantasy darling, right? Everyone, yeah. I feel like everyone in every fantasy pundit loves Jaren Jackson. Are you still as high on him long term, as a keepable asset in fantasy?
I think so. I mean, his numbers this season have been on par with his numbers last season, and pretty much so as a rookie. I think expecting him to become a rebounder is kind of far-fetched. It seems like they like him at the 4, so you kind of have to think of him as like a big 4. And blocking shots isn't easy when you're usually guarding perimeter players. But even if he spends, 15% of his minutes at the 5, he'll get blocks. And he's getting blocks right now. He's getting blocks and steals right now. He's a great defensive player. So I'm
gonna dump him before his next knee injury. I feel like he's a medic unit. He's a mash unit, Grizzlies uniform. But I'm negative that way.
I mean, there's certainly concerns there. He's got massive upside, obviously, primarily because of his defensive abilities. Per 36 this season, which is only 11 games, 2.5 blocks, 1.7 steals per 36. The rest of those per 36 numbers: 22 points, 8.7 rebounds, 2.4 3-pointers. Now, the rebound jump is nice to see. That's his per 36 rebound numbers last season were 5.8. So that's definitely an area where he needs to improve to really live up to his fantasy ceiling. And then the shooting percentage is certainly a concern. 47% last year, 42.5% this year. For
a 4.
For a big man, yeah. I mean, a 7-footer. It's somewhat troubling to see that. He is shooting a career high 83% from the line this year, which is certainly encouraging. I like him a lot. I do think he's slightly overhyped in fantasy circles because of the concerns, but he's the type of talent, and given that he'll turn 22 just before the season starts next year. I mean, his upside is top 10 fantasy value. So it just depends if he can get there or not.
He's a 3-and-D big. He kind of feels like if Brook Lopez had started his career playing like he does now, just threes, just blocking shots, playing defense. It kind of seems like that might have been what his career ended up like.
Brook Lopez, somewhat good comp. Miles Turner is another one. Like I wonder if a couple years from now we'll be viewing him as like, oh, he's just like Miles Turner, never lived up to the actual ceiling. I think he's a better scorer than Miles Turner, but similar type of defensive upside.
Okay, let's move on to our RotoWire Fantasy Postseason Draft. Shannon, Ken, me, and 4 others participated in that yesterday, and we are going to kind of run through what that was all about. Ken, you set this up. I don't know how many years you've set this up in a row, at least 3.
We are blessed to have the good people at Fantasy Postseason as a corporate partner with RotoWire. Yeah, and as part of that deal, we keep leagues going with them, and they're set up for just postseason fantasy. So shout out to the people at fantasypostseason.com. Yeah, they host our league. Let's open that league now. And we went snake with 3rd-round reversal draft. Alex, I believe of the 3 of us, you had, let me scroll to our notes here. You had the first pick at 4. I then followed at 5, and Shannon was at 7th out of 8 teams. If you're interested in starting one of these, it's really hard to go past 8 or 9 squads. I'm not sure how you guys feel about that, but that's kind of my take on things. You can, if you have a lot of friends, you can on Fantasy Postseason have multiple owners for players. So you can say like Steph Curry can be on 2 teams or 3 teams. But fun to keep the fantasy good times rolling through the postseason. So gentlemen, Alex, why don't you start? What was your strategy going in? I should say we didn't know our draft picks until 10 minutes before the thing starts. So you don't know if you're picking soon or late.
Yeah, and we also didn't know the play-in result of Indiana versus Washington. Personally, that did not affect my draft. I did not did not consider it at all, which kind of, I guess, is in line with my strategy where I really only wanted to get players from teams that I felt like had a legitimate chance to go to the conference finals. And it started off well because I got Joel Embiid with the 4th pick, which I was honestly shocked by, considering I think we talked about on this podcast, or at least Shannon and I talked about on this podcast, how the 76ers probably have the easiest path to the conference finals of any team in either conference.
I was surprised. I was surprised Allen took Kawhi Leonard, the Clippers' much harder path, before you took Embiid with the 3 spot. That shocked me.
It's a more difficult path, but I do think people are kind of sleeping on the Clippers right now. I mean, it's just there's zero buzz about them. I mean, obviously after falling, their expectations were so high last year. They failed on such a big level. They looked bad against Dallas in the first round. To get them again, I can understand the pick. But yeah, I was happy to get Embiid in from there. Like I said,
4 games against Washington might win it for you.
There is a strong chance that if I had the number 1 overall pick, I would have picked Embiid. I really think it was him or LeBron would probably have been my top 2 picks. But the LeBron pick is more just about the fact that he's LeBron and all he does is make the finals. But I mean, if you do look at the fact that they're coming out of the 7th seed, it's tough to justify picking LeBron that early. Other than the fact that he's LeBron. But so Embiid probably would have been my number 1 overall pick if I selected there.
Yeah, I think like you mentioned, I mean the Lakers are going to have to go through Phoenix in the first round, and then they get the winner of Denver versus Portland. And then they're going to have to deal with, whoever comes out of the other side of the bracket between Utah, Clippers, Dallas. I mean, it's like you mentioned, it's brutal.
You could just say the Clippers. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's the Clippers. So.
Ken, did anything happen mid-draft to make you kind of change the strategy you had going in? A few guys get taken ahead of you.
Well, I want to stack teams, and if you're not picking top 4 or at the turn, you got to be willing to change your teams on a whim based on who you think you can get. I had the 5th pick, and none of the Nets had been picked yet. And my hope had been, okay, I take Harden, and boy, I really hope Durant's unlikely, but maybe Kyrie can fall to me. And but then Shu took, right after I took Harden, Shu took Durant, and I realized, I'm the snake. He's going to pick ahead of me and shoot. He'll get Kyrie. So now I got to figure out, all right, what team can I stack? And the year I won this was when I had Durant on the Warriors in the first round, but then couldn't get any other Warriors, so I had to stack a different team and win Celtics. So this year, my easy to stack team, a number 1 seed. I know people are blowing them off, but they are a number 1 seed. So I stacked the Jazz. I went Gobert second round. I was able to get Donovan Mitchell, who obviously we hope he's healthy. 3rd round, and then Mike Conley fourth round. So I'm all in on the Jazz, and I'm hoping to have the same magic I had with Durant and Celtics. We'll see.
Remember when the Hawks were the number 1 seed?
Yes. They had 5 All-Stars.
You had Coach Bud there. Yeah. That's like what I envisioned from Utah this year. I do think it's smart stack given what you were working with and who you had. I mean, Ken, you and I were discussing the draft yesterday, and you joked that, the real reason why anyone's strategy changes from what they had going in is because of the players who were selected right before their pick. Like you have to call an audible almost every single time.
Right. Everybody wants a team they think's making the finals, so it's not like, sorry, Alec, but it's not like, that's what everybody's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went with Giannis. He dropped to 7, which I think that's a considerable drop for him. I'm picking Milwaukee to beat the Nets in round 2. And actually, if they get past the Nets, I think they get past Sixers and advance to the finals. So I loved landing Giannis there.
I can't believe you got Middleton in the 3rd round.
Well, yeah,
but everyone's worried about stacking at that point, so he fell to you.
Well, and with my second pick, I was really targeting Anthony Davis because I felt like he should have been a 1st round pick, and he dropped to that 1st pick in the 2nd round. So he went the pick before me. So default, I was stuck with, do I go? Kyrie Irving was there. I could go with one of the Sixers like Ben Simmons. I could have gone with another Buck, but I felt like both Drew Holiday and Middleton were reaches at that point. So I went with Paul George, and that meant I missed out on Holiday. on my next pick, but I was lucky enough, like you said, Ken, Middleton was still around.
Yeah. What's the Mike Tyson quote? Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
Yep.
That's like, oh, I'm going to take this guy at 6. Oh, he's not there. Okay, well, gotta move. But yeah, I like your squad, Alex. So on the snake and then reverse, you're on the back half on second and third round. Things worked out well for you in the second round, I'd say, though.
Yeah. I ended up with for some reason, I cannot pull this up. I'm trying to look at who I got. Can you tell me who I got?
So you got Ben Simmons, second round, stacking the Sixers.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you wanted, right?
That's what you want. Yeah.
Yes.
Strategy check.
I got it now. Yeah, I was happy to get Simmons.
2
from
players
there,
on a number 1 seed.
Yeah. From there, I did not stack as much as I had hoped. I kept getting my picks sniped, Mike Conley especially. And so I kind of ended up with a grab bag of other teams that I felt like could go to the conference finals, right? I got Schroeder, Ingles, Ibaka, Griffin, Dante DiVincenzo.
You ignored regular season stats, and you were just like, give me players on these teams. Joe Ingles playing in khakis. No problem. Get him on my team.
So
100%.
This draft was Wednesday morning, so we didn't know the result from the Golden State Lakers game either. Like we didn't know last night's results for Indiana and Washington.
Weren't we all picking Lakers?
I mean, it was one game, and you have Steph Curry. Anyone can win that. If Steph Curry's on the other side, it's a toss-up, and we saw that, right? I mean, it came down to the last shot or one of the last shots. It was tough with that in mind. I mean, I just avoided anyone. I mean, I try to avoid anyone who was in those playing scenarios. I mean, obviously, we knew the Lakers were going to get in eventually. Whether it's beating Golden State or beating Memphis tonight, the Lakers were going to get in. But I avoided all of those playing teams. Did you guys take a similar approach?
For the most part, I did.
If I could get Lakers, I'd take Lakers, but they didn't work out. I mean, you got Schroeder.
Yeah, I grabbed Schroeder. I felt confident enough in the Lakers to win 1 of the 2 games. Now, it kind of would have screwed me if I had, if they had fallen to 8th and then they played Utah and then I would have either lost Ingles or Schroeder in the first round. Yeah, and then the Clippers.
Yeah, no, that's where I was concerned about the Lakers. Is just if they lost that game and had to Utah Clippers in round 1 and round 2, that would be more worrisome for me. I will say after seeing Washington advance, I feel like Beal and Westbrook are massive discounts now. Even though they're probably only going to play like 5 games.
Well, that's where the you get one free agent rule kicks in, and that's another setting you can set on fantasy postseason. I think the default is 1 or 2. I can't remember, but we've had 1 for so many years. Yeah, if you had 2 free agent pickups, I was feeling the same way about Kemba Walker. If you had 2 free agent pickups, a Beal, a Walker, a Westbrook, make a lot of sense, and then you're just like, well, I'll just replace him with the best free agent after round 1.
So this is what I'm going to tell you. This is what you don't want to do. If you're drafting a fantasy playoff team today, tomorrow morning, you don't want to do this. You don't want to pick Luka, Jason Tatum, Bradley Beal, and Russell Westbrook all on your same team. Like, you will see those names. And
they'd be great regular season plays.
Right? It's amazing. You have all those great superstars on your team. But they're all 4 of those guys are losing in the first round. And we only have 1 pickup. You have 1 pickup. And even if you had 4 pickups, you're replacing them with George Hill or whoever for the next 2 or 3 rounds.
Part of the 1 pickup thing too is somebody's hot in the first round. Mm-hmm. You it's like, am I wasting it now? Or do I hold off when I might need to replace 3 bodies after, if I make it, if I'm still in play at the finals?
Well, I do think spreading out the risk and having players from multiple teams like that can be okay, but it all depends on your settings. If you only have 1 pickup for the entire playoffs, you don't want 4 or 5 on a 9 player roster. You don't want 5 players that are all going to exit in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of banking on the two major upsets in the NBA is not ideal. I mean, the vast majority of the time, what's expected to happen happens. Last year was an anomaly with Miami, but that's just kind of the nature of a 7-game series for a season that's 82 games, right? I mean, it's pretty proportional. I mean, usually
you mentioned Luka. That was Mavs to me were the one team I was just not touching. I was like, they were the team that I'm like, I do not see how they get past the Clippers.
They only get past them if there's an injury. Like if Paul George or Kawhi get hurt, that's the only way I see them getting past them. So.
Correct.
Yeah.
That was my view as well. Plus Porzingis could fold like a chair in any moment as well, too. He's got like one knee left.
Yeah, he's got the bad knee. I think the Clippers got better. I think there's a lot of reasons to take the Clippers, which is reflecting the odds. I mean, Clippers are minus 400 as favorites. I actually would still take that probably. Yeah. Ken, let's move on to our fan feedback section.
Yes. So shout out to Superfan Milan Stupjanin. Hope I'm not mispronouncing that too badly. Who commented with some fantasy postseason advice. A good segue to the segment we just had. Milan said on our last episode on YouTube, Blake Griffin will be the sleeper pickup. Nets might win the championship without a game dropped, though that means you might get more games played from Philly or Bucks players. West is wild. I'd definitely go with Nets plus one of Bucks or 76ers in my draft. Milan, thank you for that advice and good luck with your fantasy postseason. Also, thanks to Ramesh K, who's very worried about my health after I missed the last 2 episodes. I am alive and well, Ramesh. Thank you, brother. Fans, please go to our YouTube video, like the video, and leave a question for us for next week.
Try RotoWire free. Go to rotowire.com/try.
Milan is obviously a Nets fan or Blake Griffin super fan. One of the two.
I drafted Blake in the 6th.
He is owned. Doesn't say he is owned.
Yeah, I took him in the 6th.
I'm not saying he should be owned. Obviously, the Nets have as high of upside as any other team in the playoffs, but he's a saying without a game dropped. I mean, you don't think they're going to lose a single game this postseason?
I hope my Celtics can at least win one. Tatum could have one 50-point game where Kyrie decides to worry about the spherical or non-spherical aspect of our globe.
Giannis,
a personal day.
Giannis is going to average 40, 18, and 9 against the Nets. He's going to manhandle them.
I am excited for that series. That is going to be
a good one.
Okay, let's move on to kind of an abbreviated version of the Friday DFS picks. There's one game today. It is Memphis at Golden State. Like we alluded to, Golden State's favored by 5. That's at home. Over under 221. Pretty much everyone's expected to go. I think the only person on the injury list is like Sean McDermott for the Grizzlies. So we're pretty much all set there. I mean, this is a game where you can expect all of the star players to play 40 minutes probably. Assuming that fouls are not an issue or anything like that. I'll kick this to you, Shannon. So I think a lot of people will have Steph Curry as their MVP, right? Kind of based on what we've seen recently in the past 2 games. Who is the lowest salaried player that you would consider putting in at MVP if you were just going for like pure value? I have a hard time imagining anybody goes past. I mean, maybe Wiggins. I mean, Jaren Jackson. If you're feeling like you want to really, if you're really trying to kind of curb the roster percentage and you want to go Jaren Jackson as MVP, I guess.
Yeah, it's obviously it's a little bit different, depending on which format you're playing. We usually discuss FanDuel. So FanDuel's MVP format, it's last night's winner. Looking at the Indiana-Washington game, last night's winner had Westbrook at MVP and Sabonis at star. And it was Gafford at the pro, the 1.2 times slot that really made the difference. He was 12% owned total, 2.8% owned in the pro. I think we're probably going to see something similar tonight where you have Curry and Valanciunas kind of as those top two options, so star and the MVP and star. You can flip flop them whichever way you want. I think both are good for 40 plus fantasy points tonight, and then whatever their multiplier will be. Now you've got Jaren Jackson, Ja Morant, Draymond Green, Dylan Brooks, Andrew Wiggins, all these other options that could fill in. I am having a hard time going off of Curry or Valanciunas for MVP, though. I think you make the difference by, having an unexpected pro. Ja Morant would probably be the most likely pro option, most heavily owned. So maybe you throw Jaren Jackson in there, or Wiggins, like you mentioned, Dylan Brooks, and then have another low-owned player in the util spot. You have Jordan Poole is a good option. Desmond Bane is going to get minutes. I don't know that he should, but he's probably going to get minutes, and maybe he has a better game than expected. DeAnthony Melton is always popular for those kind of picks because he has that 35 fantasy point upside, but he's hit or miss. He's like 30 fantasy points one night, 9 the next. So it'll be tough, but I currently have Jaren Jackson in that pro spot, where I think we might see some fluctuation and see where you can really separate yourself from the pack.
And if you play on DraftKings, it's a little bit different, right?
Yeah, so, Gafford was the what do they call it? The MVP, or captain. The captain. It was Gafford last night that you needed in that captain spot to win. And there's salary multipliers for the captain spot, so it's a lot harder to build a team when you have Curry or Valanciunas in that captain spot. So I mean, similar, like if I'm going on DraftKings tonight, Jaren Jackson actually is a pretty good, decent captain given his salary. Bazemore, Jordan Poole is a guy who's been playing really well for the Warriors. He's playing about 25 minutes per game. He had a monster 55-point fantasy game on one of their final games of the regular season. But even in the play-in, he played 25 minutes. So
I can see a scenario where Morant tries, right or wrong, to go toe for toe with Curry in some sort of point guard shoot off.
Oh yeah.
And captain wise would be a nice gamble for GPPs.
I agree. Actually, the one thing about Morant is, in FanDuel, we'll go back to FanDuel for the MVP thing. He's going to be a sneaky MVP play because I do expect most of the ownership to go towards Valanciunas or Curry, where, Morant, if he has one of his big 50, 60 fantasy point outings, which he has those in him, then he could be a great MVP option.
Let's jump to tomorrow a little bit for a quick kind of preview of what could go down in DFS. Tomorrow, we have 4 games on Saturday. Starts off Miami at Milwaukee at I think, is it 3 p.m. Eastern? 2 p.m. Eastern. Then it goes to Dallas at the Clippers, 4:30. Boston at Brooklyn, 8 p.m. Portland at Denver, 10:30 p.m. Ken, I'm going to kick this to you quick. I have 2 questions for you.
Ooh, all right.
A, are you avoiding Giannis? And B, what is your initial feeling on Celtics players?
Well, Tatum will probably be wildly expensive, as he's hoped to carry Boston. So I kind of, from just a efficient salary usage standpoint, very curious about Kemba Walker. I mean, they've been resting him every back-to-back for the quote-unquote playoff run that, isn't happening, unfortunately. But Kemba's supposed to be well-rested. It's now or never. And he should be relatively cheap based on meager regular season. I hope my C's can steal one of these games from the Nets. I don't know if that'll happen. Frankly, this area is turning to the Bruins. Not gonna lie. And then your first question about Giannis. I mean, I really expect you, Alex, to have better Giannis advice. Miami plays great D. You know, I love Coach Spoelstra coming up with schemes to frustrate Giannis. They're going to go a little zone. I'm sure that like wall zone thing they play so he can't drive, and give him, you know, you'll see Bam give him 15 feet to take that 3-pointer. We'll see. We'll see how much Coach Bud has adjusted from last year's playoff disaster. I'm also, you didn't ask me this, but very curious to see how far Jokic can maybe carry the Nuggets with, frankly, a not so great front court for the Blazers.
So, Ken, I do have a question for you. Kemba Walker, was he good for the Celtics last season? Was he?
He was healthier.
Because he had essentially the exact same season. I would actually argue, I mean, the exact same season.
Is your point they shouldn't have been resting him on the back-to-backs? Or
no, I'm just letting you know, like he's just as good this year. You know, when he played, obviously he was on the shelf at the beginning of the season, but he's been so actually when you take into account that the slow start that he had because he's coming back from injury, the second half of the season, he's been much, much better for the Celtics than he was at any point last season. You know, and even looking down the stretch with Jaylen Brown out, I mean, Kemba Walker's he's walking like 45 fantasy points over the last seven
that's
games.
exactly why I'm recommending him. Yeah, I mean, that's why of the Celtics, Walker's my go-to guy. Brown, they can't lean on Brown. He's not there. They desperately need his points. Smart hasn't been scoring well lately either. Fournier is a roller coaster who clearly, without practice, has no idea how to play with his squad. So, yeah, Walker to me is the Celtic play in DFS.
I like that call. I think he'll be. I don't think he'll be rostered very highly, but he's. I mean, last playoffs he averaged basically 20 and 5, and I think he could average 25 and 5.
There will be plenty of shots for him. I'll tell you that much.
Plenty of shots for him.
Maybe a semi-interested Kyrie Irving guarding him. You know, when they're up 15 the whole game.
Yeah. Well, and this, I mean, from a pace perspective, I mean, the over-unders in these games will be pretty high. I mean, the Nets are going to push a tempo, so should be some high over-unders. I think Kemba's in a good spot. I think that was a good call. Shannon, does anything stick out to you, in particular on this slate? I mean, you don't have to go to this spot exactly, but Porzingis, when he was healthy last year against the Clippers, averaged almost 30 points a game in the 3 games that he did play.
Yeah, I don't know if he's there this year, though. At least not yet. Maybe in a couple weeks if they somehow advance. But for tomorrow's, it's going to be tough. I do think I like the Walker suggestion, looking at other point guards. You're going to have a lot of high price point guard options on the Saturday slate. You're going to have Damian Lillard, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving. So a guy like Kemba Walker, Drew Holiday, I'm probably going to be targeting those guys. Drew Holiday has averaged 43 fantasy points per game against the Heat this season in 3 games. I think Drew Holiday is actually going to have a massive playoff run here because one of those 3 games against the Heat was a 50-point blowout, and he only played 26 minutes. And really, the Bucks have kind of held him back a little bit. He's only played 32 minutes per game this year. I think that's going to be boosted during the playoffs. He's going to be out there for 35, 36 minutes per, assuming it's a tight game. And he's going to have a massive postseason. I really look at all 3 of the Bucks stars to have massive postseasons. So I like that a lot. If you're going a little bit looking for a discount for tomorrow's slate at guard, Campazzo is one of the guys who I'd be targeting. I draft him in our postseason draft. With Jamal Murray out, Campazzo's been pretty good. And my guess is
he'll probably from 3 too.
Yeah, my guess is he's going to be, probably in that $6,000 range. We'll see. Again, the salaries haven't come out yet, but he's been really good. I mean, just looking at the past couple weeks, past 7 games, 31 minutes per and 30 fantasy points. And there's some of those, he has some games where they didn't need him. They were blowouts. They needed to rest their starters. But I like Campazzo. I like Michael Porter Jr. These guys have really stepped up for Denver, in the absence of Murray and Barton and some of the other injured players.
Well, let's wrap this section of the podcast up, and we will kick it to Ken's old man rant.
The middle sucks. The middle kid doesn't get any attention or leadership roles. They're an afterthought. Being a middle kid in the NBA is worse. You're stuck around 500 with no chance to win now and no chance at a good lottery pick. This is particularly true for San Antonio, Washington, Chicago, and Sacramento. How does Sacramento not make a trade deadline move earlier this season? They were going nowhere. Well, they were holding out hope to make this stupid play-in tournament. Trade for the future. What is your future, Sacramento? Harrison Barnes? The middle is pointless, and so is the play-in tourney, which is just a wee little Band-Aid for these doomed middle squads.
Drew Holiday's a middle kid.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
The more you know.
I'll confess. I just assumed he was oldest because he's the best of the three.
Justin Holiday is deceptively old. Justin Holiday
he's only 1 year older. He's only 1 year older than
even still, it feels like he's like 25.
Actually, they're like Irish twins.
Yeah,
I don't know what that means.
You don't know what that's? Oh, I do. Yeah. I got Irish. I got some. My whole family tree's littered with Irish twins. That means when you're just banging kids out, and the whole idea of birth control's against your religion.
It's the mother gets pregnant before the other kids even born.
I don't know how women. Honestly, I don't know how Irish women do it. Good Lord. My grandma. Good. Oh, jeez. Off the rails. Get us back, Alex.
I don't think we have any mispronounced names other than our fan who graciously wrote into us his last name or Stubjanin.
Yeah,
I don't think
let
I'm
us know how
right.
the comments this week if we got that wrong or not. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that will wrap it up for us, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. It is presented by WinBet. Ken, take us out of here.
We're going to go to Golden State. This quote was said about 2 years ago, so I'm going to update it, where reporters asked Klay Thompson if he thought the Hawks reminded him of the champion of the Golden State Warriors. Klay said, maybe like 9 years ago. Attention passengers, this 3-car fantasy train wreck has hit the end of the line.
Try RotoWire today, free for 10 days. Get our premium tools, rankings, analysis, and breaking news alerts. No credit card required. Go to rotowire.com/try.